good. Well, I guess we'll just, the topic tonight I'm thinking is the North Carolina standards for the school executives. Is that
That's
what you
correct.
understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, and I think they're pretty concise in what they want us to do. They said 4 minutes, 4 minutes per standard. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best to keep up with that.
Okay.
Um, I've been at a workshop today on the new digital standards. So
Okay.
I've been timed all day long, it seems like. um, okay, well, if you want to, we'll just kind of swap back and forth. I'll start with the first one if you want to do it that way. Is that okay with you?
That sounds great.
Okay, so the first one is the strategic leadership. I'll just kind of read it. It's the school executives will create conditions that result in strategically re-imaging the school's vision, mission, and goals in the 21st century, understanding that schools ideally prepare students for an unseen but not altogether predictable future. The leader creates a climate of inquiry that challenges the school community to continually repurpose itself by building on its core values and beliefs about its preferred future and then developing a pathway to reach it. Which there's a lot in that standard.
Right.
But I was trying to, as I went through these standards, I was trying to think in ways that I see my school leadership perform, perform these practices. And so we did have to go through, I've got a new administrator. He's been here for, well, this is his second year, and we did have to do some repurposing and re-imaging of our school. And he did. I tried to reflect back on that, and I don't think I realized he did a pretty keen job of making that happen. We came from an administrator that kind of bent a lot of rules for some people and didn't bend rules for others, and morale was really low because of that, amongst teachers and amongst students. And when our present administrator came in, he was a positive influence on us on us making strides to change some of the things that really needed to be changed. And it says the leader creates a climate of inquiry that challenges the school community to continually repurpose itself. And a lot of that, I think, is a value as a reflection. And even though when something's working, there's a lot to be said for kind of letting it work and leaving it alone. But you've also got to kind of have your eyes open to lead people in the right direction and to be abreast of the things that could be made even better. So what's your thinking on that?
Well, I think you're right on the money. And I really like the part of this standard that says that that you're to prepare students for an unseen but not altogether unpredictable future, because although things are changing rapidly in our culture and with our students and with technology and that sort of thing, but there still are some things that will always be there, challenges that will always be there, problems that will always exist. And so although we don't know exactly what the world is going to look like in 20 or 30 years. We do know that there will be some consistent issues that our students will have to address as they become adults, because we've lived through it and are living through it.
Right.
And so, I just thought that was a very keen statement there. And our principal is on his second year, and as the more I go through these standards, the more I see that he seems to be on the money, or at least striving towards the goal for a lot of these. And I can see it reflecting in our school and some of the changes that have been made.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I can see that if we've not accomplished it, we've got it in mind.
Right.
It's on our radar, so to speak. Yeah, and I agree with you that I don't think I had seen it put that way, but um, it's unseen, but we can predict that it's going to be, things are changing, and we need to be prepared for the changing world. Just because it's changing doesn't mean that we shouldn't prepare for it.
That's right. Well,
Exactly.
my father was an educator and an administrator and worked at the community college. And when he was beginning his teaching career, it was the days of integration. And that was the challenge of that day. But yet, the challenges that I'm facing in my generation as an educator are not the exact same challenges, but some of the dynamics, some of the interpersonal relationship issues and things like that continue, just with a different set of circumstances.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I don't know, I just kind of thought about that as I read that statement.
Yeah, very true. My mother is the same thing. She taught in Southern Georgia during the first years of integration. So, yeah, they were dealing with a whole different set of issues in one way, but
Right,
a lot of the ways we're kind of dealing with the same thing.
that's right, that's right. All right, you want to move on to standard two? Is it time or?
I don't know. I told you don't count on. It's close. Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, I'll read standard two then. School executives will set high standards for the professional practice of 21st century instruction and assessment that results in a no-nonsense, accountable environment. The school executive must be knowledgeable of best instructional and school practices and must use this knowledge to cause the creation of collaborative structures within the school for the design of highly engaging school work for students, the ongoing peer review of this work, and the sharing of this work throughout the professional community. I guess what stood out with me from the get-go was just the high standards.
Hmm.
That's something that we are constantly being challenged with. I know at our school and within our district is higher standards. And I think that it was time for that. I think that a lot of times we set the bar too low because we want to accommodate and help bring up some of those that are struggling. And then, but yet we do that by kind of dropping everything down instead of trying to raise them up. And so I think that this emphasis on the high standards has been a really important step. And I know it personally, I'm still learning to do that, to raise the bar and to try to come up with strategies to elevate our students and get them stronger.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree with you on
go
that.
ahead.
No, go right on.
Right. It talks about the collaborative structures within the school, which ties right into what we're doing with the PLCs, through our coursework this semester. And, I know, like, as we've talked before, my school is doing PLCs. It's really started it this year strongly, and I believe with the kind of the right intent. And so we're having more collaboration, and we're having those discussions that are just even beyond content, but school schedule, and other aspects of the school culture that are going to affect the overall student learning. So we're starting to actually have those conversations in our school leadership team and also within our PLC groups. So
Yes.
I think that we're definitely I'll just say our administration, all of them, I think are definitely getting us in gear for the changing culture.
Yes, yes, same here. I think we're in a very similar situation. Um, One thing that jumped out at me was the no nonsense, accountable environment. Um, the kids have got to know, and I think teachers will have to know that we're in the business of like you said, raising them to a higher standard. And that's something I struggle with in my classroom too, because I'll get such a mixture of levels when they come into my room. I have native speakers, and I have some that have not ever had Spanish before, and I've got to be real careful not to lower my expectations down to that lowest level, and because that's if that seems that's the easiest way to teach them.
Right.
But it's not. It is a challenge for me to try to give my students things, especially the native speakers within the same classroom, what they need, and I think that's something I definitely work on daily within my own setting. And the one thing that I also saw that it mentioned in practices was creates processes and schedules that facilitate the collaborative team design.
Uh-huh.
And excuse me, um, I'm not sure. We're such a small school. It's really hard to put time within the school day,
Right.
to schedule for like the English department if we had all the English department that had planning at the same time, and in order for them to be able to meet in their PLCs during the regular day, it would really limit when we could offer English throughout the school,
Right.
so we're kind of constricted by that. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that, because we're in the beginning stages of implementing these PLCs, and in order for them to be effective, I think there's going to have to be a time set aside. Um, you know, as you know, um, high schools are full of coaches, and it's really hard to get
Right.
coaches available to be able to do that. So,
Yeah, and in fact, it's interesting you said that, because actually the PLC that I've been working with this semester and for my coursework, we actually had to switch. We were going to meet on Monday afternoons, but we've got a baseball coach, and so now we're actually meeting Tuesday mornings before school. So we're meeting at 6:45.
uh-huh.
And so
Wow.
far, everybody's pretty much made it. Somebody might be a few minutes late, but and that's actually worked well. So you do have to kind of get creative. And
Right.
I
How
know,
did that, I mean, I'd be interested to know, I mean, how did everybody buy into that? I mean, just,
well, to be honest, the people involved were kind of early birds anyway. It just
yeah,
worked out. The good
right,
Lord worked it out that we all kind of had the same mentality as far as getting there early. And I usually get there about 6:40 anyway. And the other ones, pretty much did too. So it just, everybody was like, well, hey, why don't we just do it in the morning? Because not only the coaching, but IEP meetings and stuff
yeah,
like that. So it just worked out.
yeah. Well, that's really, I worked, the first school I worked in, that's kind of, we had a teacher's meeting every morning
Oh,
before
wow.
school. Yeah. At 7 o'clock in the morning, we would have a 20-minute meeting every morning. I'm not quite sure why we did that. I think it was roll check, but
Right.
anyway.
Well, and I can understand it wouldn't work for everybody, because there was a time when my kids were smaller, and it just worked. It wouldn't have worked out for me to be there that early, where
Right.
I was dropping somebody off at the middle school or elementary school or whatever. But now that my oldest daughter's in high school, I pretty much just give her a ride. So we have teachers that bring their kids to work, and then a bus takes them from our school to another school, and
Right.
so
Right.
I guess it just depends.
Right, right. I'm with you. I mean, I'm here early too, so I would much rather get things done earlier in the day, and not have to worry about things afterwards. And we actually do a lot of our student meetings in the morning. I do student council, and um, if I promise them a donut in the mornings for student
Right.
council meeting, they will come. So,
Yeah, that's great.
okay, so moving on to standard 3, cultural leadership. School executives will understand and act on the understanding of the important role of a school's culture, that a school's culture contributes to the exemplary performance of the school. School executives must support and value the traditions, artifacts, symbols, and positive values and norms of the school and community that result in a sense of identity and pride upon which to build a positive future. A school executive must be able to reculture the school if needed to align with the schools of improving student and adult learning, and to infuse the work of the adults and students with passion, meaning, and purpose. Cultural leadership implies understanding the school as the people in it. The cultural leadership implies understanding the school as the people in it each day, how they came to their current state, and how to connect with their traditions in order to move them forward to support the school's efforts to achieve individual and collective goals. Okay.
A lot.
That's a lot. Okay, and then one of the practices down here that I've got highlighted is it creates a collaborative work environment predicated on site-based management that supports the team as the basic unit of learning and decision-making within the school and promotes cohesion. This is something we just came out from under it 2 years ago, where we were just such a separated staff, and the kids knew it, parents knew it, you just can't function that way. The kids have got to know that we're all on the same team, and that we're all working for them, for their good, and it helps to empower teachers to feel like that they are definite stakeholders in this whole what we're trying to achieve. And if you don't feel like you're vital, or that I don't know, if you're just not cohesive, then it just, to me, just seems like like a basketball team. If you're not cohesive, then you fall apart.
Right.
So it says, systematically and fairly acknowledges failures and celebrates accomplishments. That's something that current administration, that's what they do. If there's something they see that we need to work on, they will point that out. But many more times we celebrate accomplishments than we do failures. And sometimes we don't even celebrate accomplishments. We just celebrate, we just celebrate the fact that we work in a great place with great people,
Right.
So it says promotes a sense of well-being amongst staff, students, and parents, builds a sense of efficacy and empowerment. And I think that word empowerment, me as an educator, I am much more productive when I feel empowered. And I hope to one day be an administrator that empowers their staff. We've talked about this creative leadership model, and it almost seems like a dream to be able to just let go of all that and let your staff be able to make the majority of the decisions, and you just kind of give them the materials they need in order to in order to realize, or what's the word I'm looking for, to realize the vision that they have for what they need to do in order to be successful in their classroom, or as successful as a school. But if it's a high functioning faculty with high efficacy, then I can see how that would be the best way to go if you can attain that.
Right. Very good. I definitely agree with that. One of the statements that I kind of noted here in my copy is that it says, cultural leadership implies understanding the school as the people in it each day, how they came to their current state, and how to connect with their traditions in order to move them forward to support the school's efforts to achieve individual and collective goals. And I think that resonates tremendously with my school. We're very unique in one sense. We have two other high schools in our county, and they are just completely different than our school. And it's kind of like until you, I guess, teach or spend some time in each one, you don't realize how high schools from the same district can be so completely different. And our students don't respond to the same thing that the students at the other high schools respond to. Our community is different. We are a community school, but I think sometimes it takes a little bit of time to build trust from our community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, I've served under this is my fourth different principal at this school, and two of them were from this community, and two of them have not been. And the one we have now is not from this community. And so, you know, that it's a challenge, I guess, to get the community to trust and to learn all the intricacies and the dynamics of the population and the different families and even the staff, because our staff, I would say about 50% went to that high school. You know? So, you know, you've got those who know the school in and out in the community, and then you've got a bunch of the other half of teachers that haven't, and you know, just to kind of keep everything together. But he's done a wonderful job, especially being from the outside. And I just think, you know, knowing the students and where they come from and what their home lives are like when they step onto our campus, you know, what environment they're coming from, I think is just a huge part of that. Yes, we probably ran over the time on that one, but we'll move on to standard 4 if you're all right with that. Melissa, are you there?
Okay, maybe now.
Okay.
Somehow I muted it. I'm not sure what's going on with all this. But.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all right. You may go ahead and read standard 4 then.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, great. All right. School executives will ensure that the school is a professional learning community. School executives will ensure that processes and systems are in place that result in the recruitment, induction, support, evaluation, development, and retention of a high-performing staff. The school executives must engage and empower accomplished teachers in a distributed leadership manner, including support of teachers in the day-to-day decisions such as discipline, communication with parents, and protecting teachers from duties that interfere with teaching. They also must practice fair and consistent evaluation of teachers. The school executive must engage teachers and other professional staff in conversations to plan their career paths and support district succession planning. All right, so I've got a bunch of stuff highlighted on that one. Yeah. Of course, you know, the very first sentence, professional learning communities, and you know, we've certainly been learning a lot about that this semester, and we've talked about the value of that. And then a couple sentences down, the recruitment, support, and evaluation, retention of teachers. My wife actually works as a county mentor, and that's one of her biggest job descriptions is to help retain the new teachers that we get. So, you know, it's kind of interesting to bounce some ideas off her and talk with her about the principals that she works with. But that is such a huge, huge thing. I don't know about your school, but we have, you know, I mentioned about 50% of our school is people that went to that high school, but the other half, a lot of them are coming from out of state, especially some of the states up north, Pennsylvania and Ohio, New York. And a lot of times they'll come down as new teachers, kind of waiting until they can get a job back in their home state. And we deal with that a lot. And you know, I don't blame them for wanting to go home, but you know, we'd like to establish some consistency. And I think, you know, that the principal advocating for the school system, the area, and trying to show the teacher that, you know, their career can move forward and they can be very important and you know, have an impact right here in North Carolina. I think that's a big part of it. I also had underlined, and I think probably every teacher would probably highlight this: protecting teachers from duties that interfere with teaching. You know, I don't know how many times I've probably said or heard, I love the teaching, it's everything else that that'll drive you crazy, whether it be duties or what have you. But there's not too many teachers at our school that really complain about doing a lunch duty or even a ball game or a dance, because they all seem to understand that that's just part of the school and the culture, and they get to see students in a different light. I think the extra duties are just unnecessary paperwork that's above and beyond what the state or the district would mandate. And I think that it's, you know, that as the principal, you're a leader that helps show teachers how to not reinvent the wheel, you know, and teach them to work smarter, not harder, I guess. And so that they can reduce the things that distract from teaching, that you know, take away from the time to do that. So
Yeah.
I would not say, you know, I would not have really any complaints right now with the amount of duties that I have to do. Now, there have been years where I have, you know, where I have been frustrated by that. Right now, it's okay.
Right. I just had a conversation about this particular thing with an elementary teacher that I was with today, and her car duty, I can't believe this is happening, but she has car duty. She's an 8th grade teacher. She has car duty in the afternoon that she has to leave her students 10 minutes early to go to car duty. And well, it just baffled my mind. You know, and I asked this teacher, I said, well, what do you do about that? And she said, well, I have to go find someone for the last 10 minutes of my class. You know, it takes 10 minutes off of my class. Not to mention I have to go find someone to go and do my duty. And my question was why is that person that's not to do my duty, but to come into my classroom? I said, my question was, why is that person not doing your duty then if they don't have a classroom at that time? I will tell you that principal put in her resignation on Thursday. I'm beginning to understand why.
Right.
With practices like that in place, and from what I understand, there were several of them. And so, those type things definitely, concretely interfere with instruction. We're the same here. We've got a couple of people that want to be paid for every extra minute that they spend at our school, or they want to be able to write it down and trade it out, or something. Right. But for the most part, people, that they will do what they are asked to do, and then more. I think it goes back to that other standard of, when, it's kind of like at church. I'm bought into church, and I know that they need me there, and I need to be there, and we're all just kind of a team that makes things happen there, and we just kind of pitch in. And in school, it would be nice if everyone worked that way, but it seems to be that most people do here. Yeah. And I think we're kind of from similar backgrounds. But one thing that stuck out to me that I am worried about as an administrator, as I'll watch the 2 administrators that I have, is the evaluation of teachers and other staff in a fair and equitable manner. Not that I think that I'm evaluated unfairly, but there is one administrator that will be very specific and very helpful, critical but helpful, and then one administrator who you're just going through the process. Right. There's not a whole lot of feedback there. So I'm, as administrator, I don't know, that's gonna be something hard for me to do, is to assure that I think it's going to be hard to evaluate a classroom that, I don't know, just to be fair and equitable across the board. And I think that's something that we need to work on here, because we are just, when we get one administrator that's going to evaluate us, we're like, we're good to go. Yeah. If the other one comes in, we know we're going to get, when we go in and we do our post observation, that he's really, we're going to be in there 30 or 45 minutes, because he's going to really give us some feedback, which, I appreciate that. But I don't know. That just kind of jumped out at me when I started thinking about doing that evaluation instrument. I sat in on one the other day. I asked. It was actually my husband's evaluation, and I said, "Can I go in? I just want to see it all roll out, because I just not seen it I just looked at it from my side of the desk rather than from the other side, and it was just it's kind of daunting to think about that. And making sure that you are giving good feedback, constructive feedback that affects positive instruction. So anyway, so I guess we probably should move on to standard 5.
Okay.
Managerial leadership. School executives will ensure that the school has processes and systems in place for budgeting, staffing, problem solving, communicating expectations, and scheduling that result in organizing the work routines in the building. The school executive must be responsible for the monitoring of the school budget and the inclusion of all teachers in the budget decisions so as to meet the 21st century needs of every classroom. Effectively and efficiently managing the complexity of everyday life is critical for staff to be able to focus its energy on improvement. Okay, so it says the school executive practices effective managerial leadership when he or she creates processes to provide for a balanced operational budget for school programs and activities. Have you ever been a part of, I mean, we do this like we do this in a school improvement team whenever, when we have budget requests and things like that, but I'm just not sure what that's going to look like as far as, operating in the school budget. Have you ever been a part of that?
No, just like you with our leadership team, which we call cabinet, there's been some budgeting decisions like, do we want to buy this resource or not? But as far as actually seeing the budget, I've not. And that's, when considering to being an administrator, that's one of the daunting tasks that, I'm a little weary of. I know it's a big part of it because.
And an important part, I know.
And as I go through this program, and trying to look at things through the lens of an administrator, we as teachers don't like to be told no sometimes, but as an administrator, you have to say no. We can't do that. We can't afford that, or we don't have money for that. And I think that's just going to be a big part of it, of what resources do we have and where should they be allocated to best impact the whole school.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, it's going to be a pretty big judgment call, huh?
My principal did say in weeks they're really going to start working on the master schedule, and that he wanted me to kind of be involved with that. So that'll be interesting too, because again, I've gone to the counselors plenty of times and my schedule, that sort of thing, but that's just one piece of the pie.
Right.
And I know that the high school scheduling especially is just a big undertaking.
Yeah, well, and we've been meeting with individual students this week, not the master schedule, just trying to figure out, what kind of numbers we're dealing with for each class.
Right.
I've been invited to do that too, and it's sticky, especially in a smaller school, where it's just vital that. I don't know. And we were a little bit overstaffed. So we just lost, I'm the only foreign language teacher now. And so they came to visit me and told me that my class size was going to be 40, 45. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
We lost the position in my department last year, and which for the EC, it means a bigger caseload for doing the IEPs, and that's not fun. But
no, it's not. But that's part of it all. You just have to do the best with what you got.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so standard 6.
Okay, executive will result in community engagement, support, and ownership, acknowledging that schools no longer reflect, but in fact build community. The leader proactively creates with staff opportunities for parents, community, and business representatives to participate as stockholders in the school, such that continued investment of resources and goodwill are not left to chance. So I highlighted pretty much that whole paragraph. But I definitely agree with the statement that the school builds community. I mean, especially again in schools like ours that are a little bit smaller and smaller communities involved. And if we're not building community, then what are we doing?
Right.
So we're trying to empower these students to go out and to be able to make a decent living and to make an impact in the world and to be positive citizens. That's all community building. We're teaching them patriotism, respect, and the value of hard work, and all things that I know our community values.
Right.
So,
right. And I think that's something that our school needs to do a little bit better job with, just to be quite honest. I mean, we've got, athletic boosters where parents come in, and we've got 2 parents that sit on our school improvement team.
right.
But I really do think that we need to bring our community into our schools more.
Right.
I don't know. I just think that I have been in a school system where, I mean, the community is just all over the school.
Right.
You have to ask them to lay off sometimes because they were just so into it. But at the same point, I mean, I was in a school system where they were trying to get rid of the elementary Spanish program, and those parents, I mean, I didn't have to go to bat for it. I mean, the parents just totally organized themselves and went to the school board and made it happen. So yeah, that we do need, it says to make them to participate as stockholders, because they are stockholders.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to 7 and 8 quickly and mention them, because we've
Sure.
Gone on. Okay. So micro-political leadership, the school executive will build a system and relationship that utilizes the staff's diversity, encourages constructive ideological conflict in order to leverage staff expertise, power, and influence to realize the school's vision for success. The executive will also creatively employ an awareness of staff members' professional needs, issues, and interests to build social cohesion and to facilitate distributed governance and shared decision-making. So it says one thing that you would need to do would be in classrooms a lot. I don't know about your administration, but ours, we see our administration a lot, and they're in our classrooms a lot, and I really appreciate that. And that they are easily accessible to our teachers and staff, which they are. I've not always had administrators that are easy to get to whenever I need them, but
Right.
ours are very easy to get to, and they are very good at, they have gotten to know our staff and know what our strengths are, and they try to use different staff members' strengths to lead the staff, and just make a really concerted effort to try to get to know each staff member and to use their expertise in areas that that others can benefit from.
Very good. All right. Well, Standard 8 is all about academic success, and the school executives or school leaders contributing to the success of all students. From the very highest and best achieving to the lowest, and those that have learning disabilities and such. And it does speak about the growth, understanding the growth model, understanding that the goal for the goal is to grow each and every student, and to make, of course, with the various tests that our state does, and of course tests and grade tests and final exams and that sort of thing. And so I think just being the facilitator of that at the school and helping the staff understand how growth is measured, and to implement strategies that will help the school grow.
Very good.
All right.
Well, I guess we got it in.
Yeah, we'll switch off, and thank you for setting this up.
No problem. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.